The Galactic Cartography Council met in the same crystalline chamber they had occupied for 47,000 years. The star map that floated in the center of the room had barely changed in all that time. A border shift here, a new colony marker there, but the fundamental structure remained identical to what it had been when the first counselors gathered. Ambassador X of the stood before the assembled representatives, his crystalline body refracting the light of 1,000 stars. He regarded the addition to the council chambers with something approaching amusement. The human delegation sat in chairs they had brought themselves, since the chamber had not been designed for their soft, bilateral forms. "The matter before us is simple," X announced, his voice resonating like wind through ice caves. "The species called humanity has achieved faster-than-light capability. As per standard protocol, we offer them membership in the galactic community under the usual terms." The human ambassador, a woman named Sarah, stood. She was small compared to most species in the chamber, but she moved with a confidence that several of the older counselors found unusual for such a young race. "We appreciate the offer," said, her translator rendering her words into the various languages of the assembly. "But we have some questions about these terms." A ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. New species didn't ask questions. They accepted. "The terms are standard," X explained with exaggerated patience. "Your species will be granted sovereignty over your home system, and the 3 neighboring systems accessible via the hyperspace lane you have discovered. You will pay the customary tariffs for use of primary trade routes. You will acknowledge authority over the sector and provide military support when required." "And if we decline?" asked. The chamber fell silent. In 47,000 years, no species had declined. The hyperspace lanes were fixed points in the universe, as immutable as the laws of physics themselves. Everyone knew where they led, how they connected, which systems held strategic value. Territory was predetermined by geography. You couldn't change the map, so you learned to work within it. "Then you remain isolated in your small corner of space," X said. "Cut off from galactic trade, from advanced technology, from the protection of established powers. Most species reconsider within a generation." Smiled, "We'll take our chances." 3 months later, the surveillance network detected something impossible. A human cargo ship appeared in the outer reach, a cluster of mining colonies more than 200 light-years from human territory. There was no hyperspace lane connecting these regions. The outer reach was accessible only through space. X himself led the investigation. The human captain, a grizzled man named Tors, welcomed him aboard with what the translator identified as aggressive friendliness. "How did you arrive here?" X demanded. Tors gestured at his navigation display. "Took the new lane, opened up about 6 weeks ago, makes the trip much shorter." "There is no lane here. We have mapped this region extensively." "Wasn't there before," Tors agreed. "Is there now?" X examined the navigational data. The mathematics made no sense. Hyperspace lanes followed gravitational corridors between massive objects, stars and black holes and neutron star clusters. They were discovered, not created. This was fundamental physics. "You will provide us with the coordinates of this lane immediately," X ordered. Tors shrugged. "Sure. It's right there in the data I just showed you. Public information. We're opening 3 more next month, including one that'll connect the outer reach directly to the territories. Should make trade much easier." The implication struck X like a physical blow. If humans could access systems without using established lanes, every strategic calculation in the galaxy became obsolete. The controlled the primary trade routes because those routes existed naturally. If humans could create new routes, nothing was secure. He returned to the council with his findings. The debate lasted for 3 days. "They must be lying," insisted of the collective, "claiming to have found hidden lanes to make themselves appear more significant." Then explain how their ships are appearing in isolated systems, X countered. We have 17 confirmed now. Human vessels in locations that should require passage through controlled space. The wandering scholar, an ancient being whose species name had been lost to time, drifted forward. Perhaps we should ask them to explain. Ambassador arrived at the council within a week. She brought with her a human scientist, a young man named Doctor, who looked barely old enough to have finished his education. The answer is simple, explained, calling up a holographic display. You've all been thinking about hyperspace lanes as fixed features of the universe. They're not. They're regions where the fabric of spacetime is thin enough for FTL travel. You found the natural ones, the places where massive gravitational forces already created the right conditions. This is known, X said impatiently. Right, but you stopped there. You found the easy paths and assumed that was all there was. We asked a different question. If gravity can thin the barriers naturally, what happens if we do it artificially? The chamber erupted in noise. Several species were shouting that such manipulation was impossible. Others demanded to see the technology immediately. Waited for silence. Our ships carry gravity manipulation arrays. It takes about 4 weeks of sustained effort, but we can create a stable hyperspace lane between any 2 points within about 200 light-years. The lane remains open permanently once established. You're rewriting the map, the wandering scholar said softly. We're expanding it, corrected. There are thousands of systems that are currently isolated or difficult to reach. We can connect them, open new trade routes, link civilizations that have never had contact. You can bypass our territories entirely, X said, finally understanding. Make our strategic positions meaningless. Met his eyes. Yes, we can, but that's not our goal. We're offering to share the technology, train other species to create lanes. Imagine a galaxy where location doesn't determine destiny. Imagine chaos, X snapped. The current system has maintained peace for precisely because territory is fixed. Everyone knows their place. You're proposing to destroy the order of the galaxy. We're proposing to free it, replied. The vote came 2 days later. The council demanded that humanity cease all lane creation and surrender their technology for proper oversight and regulation. The vote was unanimous, with humanity abstaining. Delivered their response, standing before the entire assembly. We decline. Humanity will continue to create hyperspace lanes. We will continue to offer passage to any species that wishes to use them. And we will continue to teach the technology to anyone who wants to learn. X rose, his crystalline form blazing with reflected light. Then you leave us no choice. The hegemony hereby declares humanity in violation of fundamental galactic law. You have 1 standard month to comply or face military action. Gathered her materials calmly. The hegemony will do what it believes necessary, so will we. As the human delegation left, the wandering scholar spoke quietly to X. You're making a mistake. They discovered something genuinely new. That hasn't happened in my lifetime. Which is precisely why they must be stopped, X replied, before they change everything. 4 weeks later, they assembled their fleet. 3,000 ships, the largest military force gathered in living memory. They would jump into human space, destroy their lane creation facilities, and restore order. The fleet entered the hyperspace lane leading to Earth. It was the only known route into the heart of human territory, a natural corridor that humanity had discovered 50 years earlier when they first achieved FTL capability. The lane carried them forward through the distorted space of hyperspace, where normal physics bent and twisted. After 6 hours of travel, they prepared to emerge into the Sol system. Instead, they found themselves in empty space. System diagnostics showed no nearby stars, no planets, nothing but empty void in their own ships. More troubling was the navigational data. The hyperspace lane behind them was gone, completely. It simply ended as if someone had sealed it off. X stared at the displays, feeling something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. A transmission came through on standard frequencies. Ambassador appeared on the screen, her expression grave. "Welcome to human space, Commander X. We're sorry for the deception, but you didn't leave us much choice. The lane you just traveled wasn't the original route to Sol. We collapsed that 3 weeks ago and built a new one. This one leads exactly where we wanted you to go, which is nowhere in particular." X fought to keep his voice steady. "This is an act of war." "This is self-defense," corrected. "You declared war on us. We simply chose the battlefield. Your fleet is currently located approximately 80 light-years from the nearest star system. You have two options: surrender and we'll open a lane to get you home, or try to find your own way out. We'll be watching." The transmission ended. X looked at his fleet, 3,000 ships floating in the darkness between stars. They had enough supplies for 6 months. They had weapons capable of destroying planets. They had the finest warriors in the galaxy. But they had no map. And in a universe where humans could change the very structure of space itself, all their weapons and warriors meant nothing. The map had changed, and they were lost. Commander X refused to believe his situation was hopeless. They had ruled space for 20,000 years. They had not achieved that through surrender. If the humans wanted a demonstration of military superiority, they would receive one. "Scan for gravitational anomalies," he ordered his navigators. "The humans create these lanes using gravity manipulation. We should be able to detect their work and follow them." The scans took 2 days. They found 17 potential hyperspace routes within range, thin spots in spacetime that could potentially support FTL travel. But none of them were stable. They flickered in and out of existence, half-formed possibilities that might lead anywhere or nowhere. "They're testing routes," his chief navigator reported, "creating potential lanes and then collapsing them. It's like they're surrounding us with false trails." X selected the most stable-looking anomaly. "We jumped there. Even an unstable lane is better than sitting here." The fleet made the jump. They emerged in a system with a single red dwarf star and nothing else. No planets, no asteroids, no resources. But there was another hyperspace signature nearby. They jumped again, and again, and again. Each time they found themselves in another empty or worthless system. Each time there was exactly one apparent exit. After the 5th jump, X realized the truth. They weren't choosing their path. They were being herded. "Stop," he ordered. "We hold position and wait. Let them make the next move." 3 days passed. Then a week. Supplies began to run low. The fleet hung in space around a dying star, and X wrestled with the implications of his situation. The humans had done more than trap his fleet. They had revealed that everything the thought they knew about warfare was obsolete. In the old galaxy, you fought over planets and stations and the natural hyperspace lanes that connected them. You built defenses you controlled the map. But what happened when your enemy could redraw the map at will? How did you defend a lane that didn't exist yesterday and might not exist tomorrow? How did you plan strategy when the very terrain of space was fluid? A transmission interrupted his thoughts. Ambassador again, but this time she was on the bridge of a human warship. Behind her, X could see combat stations and weapon systems. The humans had brought their fleet. "Commander," she said, "we need to talk about your options." "You want surrender," X said. "We will not give it." "I want to avoid more loss of life," corrected. "Your fleet is powerful, Commander. If we engaged you in open battle, thousands would die on both sides. But you're not in a position to fight. You're in a position to starve." "Then starve us. We will not yield." "Side, we've spent the last 2 weeks creating something. Would you like to see?" The display changed. It showed a star chart, but not like any X had seen before. The space around the fleet was crossed with dozens of new hyperspace lanes, a web of possible routes that led in every direction. Some connected to territory, others led to human space, still others connected to systems that had been isolated for. "We've created 73 new lanes in this region," explained. "6 of them lead directly back to your territory. Your fleet could be home in 2 days." "Why would you do that?" "Because we're not trying to destroy you, Commander. We're trying to change your mind. Look at what we built. These lanes connect the hegemony to 14 systems that were previously unreachable. 3 of them have habitable worlds. 2 have resource deposits that will revolutionize your manufacturing. All of this is yours, free and clear. All we ask is that you stop trying to prevent us from opening more." X studied the chart. He could see what she meant. The new lanes didn't just trap his fleet. They opened opportunities his people had never imagined. Systems that had been too isolated to colonize were suddenly accessible. Resources that couldn't be reached economically were now viable. And what do humans gain from this generosity? The same thing we've gained by opening every lane so far. New trading partners, new ideas, new friends. Commander, the galaxy has been stuck for 47,000 years because everyone accepted that the map couldn't change. We changed it, and we're going to keep changing it until every species that wants to explore, trade, and grow has the opportunity to do so. Even species that attacked you. Especially species that attacked us. Because this isn't about revenge or dominance, it's about possibility. You came here to stop us from creating lanes. Instead, you're going to go home and tell your people about all the new lanes that benefit them. That's not a military victory. It's something better. X felt the weight of his decision. He could refuse, condemn his fleet to slow death, make a final stand that proved nothing except stubbornness. Or he could accept what was being offered and return home to face the harder questions about what humanity's technology meant for the future. "If we return through your lanes," he said slowly, "we accept your right to create them." "You accept reality," replied. "The lanes exist, more will exist. You can fight against that or adapt to it." The transmission ended. X called his senior commanders together. The debate lasted 6 hours. Half wanted to reject the offer on principle. The other half pointed out that principle wouldn't feed the fleet or get them home alive. In the end, they voted to accept. The journey back took 3 days, traveling through lanes so new that the navigation computers struggled to recognize them. When they emerged into space, X expected an ambush, some final humiliation to complete humanity's victory. Instead, they found supply ships waiting. Human supply ships, loaded with food and medical supplies. "Compliments of Earth," the cargo captain transmitted. "We figured you might be running low after 2 weeks. No charge. Consider it a welcoming gift to the neighborhood." X had lived for 3 centuries. He had fought in 17 wars and negotiated 63 peace treaties. He had believed he understood power in all its forms. But he had never encountered an enemy that defeated you and then gave you gifts. The human captain continued, "Oh, an ambassador wanted me to let you know that we're opening a navigation school on station next month. Any who want to learn how to create hyperspace lanes are welcome to enroll. First semester is free." As the supply ships departed, X looked at his fleet, battered and humiliated but alive and fed. He looked at the star charts showing all the new lanes that had appeared in the last month. He looked at the invitation to learn the technology that had defeated them. And he realized that the humans hadn't just changed the star map. They had changed the entire game. The question now was whether they would adapt or be left behind. When X returned to the Galactic Council 3 weeks later, he found it in chaos. Half the species were demanding action against humanity. The other half were already sending their navigators to study with human instructors. The ambassador was in the middle of an angry speech when X arrived. "They've created 12 new lanes this week alone. Systems that were safely isolated are now exposed. Pirates have access to routes that didn't exist a month ago. This is exactly the chaos we predicted. It's also created opportunities that didn't exist a month ago, countered the representative. My people have made first contact with the Silicate Collective. We've traded more in the last 2 weeks than in the previous decade, all because of human lanes. X took his place at the podium. The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear from the commander who had led the mighty fleet to defeat. The humans cannot be stopped by military force, he said bluntly. Not because their fleet is stronger than ours. It isn't. But because they can control the terrain of space itself. They can trap you where they want you and free you when it serves them. Conventional warfare is meaningless against such an advantage. So we surrender, someone shouted. We adapt, X replied. They're offering to teach the technology. Some of you have already accepted. Others are refusing on principle. I submit that this is the wrong approach. What do you suggest? Asked the wandering scholar. X called up a star chart. In the 3 months since humans revealed their capability, they have created 147 new hyperspace lanes. Do you see the pattern? The assembled counselors studied the map. The new lanes didn't concentrate in human space. They spread throughout the galaxy, connecting isolated systems, creating shortcuts between distant sectors, linking civilizations that had never had contact. They're not building an empire, X continued. They're building infrastructure. Every lane they open benefits dozens of species, not just themselves. This isn't conquest. It's something we don't have a word for. It's revolution, the wandering scholar said quietly. They're overthrowing the fundamental structure of galactic civilization, not through violence but through possibility. And we can either join it or be left behind, X finished. I propose that the hegemony officially recognize humanity's right to create hyperspace lanes and begin training our own navigators in the technique. Not because we surrender to their authority, but because we recognize the futility of fighting against progress. The debate raged for 2 more weeks. In the end, the council took no official action, but individual species began making their own arrangements with humanity. They sent a delegation of mathematicians to study the gravitational calculations. The silicates offered resource deposits in exchange for new lanes to their isolated colonies. Even the quietly enrolled 3 of their best navigators in the human program. The holdouts grew increasingly isolated. Every week brought news of new lanes, new connections, new opportunities. Species that had been locked out of profitable trade routes suddenly had options. Systems that had been strategic became irrelevant as traffic simply routed around them. And then, 6 months after the first human lane appeared, something changed. The mathematician Al made a discovery. While studying the human gravitational equations, she found a shortcut, a way to simplify the mathematics that made lane creation 10 times faster and 1/10 as expensive. She published her findings freely, without patent or profit. Within a month, 17 species were creating their own lanes. The trickle became a flood. Ambassador stood before the remnants of the Galactic Council 1 year after humanity had first revealed their technology. The chamber was different now. More species had claimed seats. Civilizations that had been too isolated to participate in galactic politics suddenly had voices. We didn't do this to rule you, said. We did it because we arrived in a galaxy that seemed finished. Every system explored, every lane mapped, every strategic position occupied. We were told our place was to accept what remained. We refused. She called up the current star map. It was almost unrecognizable compared to the version from a year ago. Hundreds of new lanes crisscrossed the galaxy. New connections appeared daily. Some were human work. Most were not. You accused us of creating chaos, continued. Perhaps you were right. But chaos is just another word for possibility. For 50,000 years, your position in the galaxy was determined by where you evolved. which hyperspace lanes happened to be near your home world, which powerful species controlled access to resources. That's over now. And what happens when species use these lanes to make war? Demanded one of the counselors. When pirates and raiders can strike anywhere and vanish through routes that didn't exist yesterday. The same thing that always happened, replied. We deal with it together, but at least now no species is trapped. No one's future is predetermined by ancient geography. You all have the freedom to choose your own paths. Literally. The vote came 1 week later. The Galactic Cartography Council officially dissolved itself. In its place, the member species formed the Free Navigation Compact, dedicated to maintaining records of the ever-growing network of hyperspace lanes and ensuring open access for all. X was elected to serve on the new council, as was Ambassador. On his first day in the new position, X stood before the central display showing the current map. New lanes appeared every hour now, tiny additions to an ever-expanding web. Species that had never had contact were opening trade routes. Scientists from a dozen civilizations were collaborating on new navigation techniques. Joined him at the display. Do you ever regret not stopping us when you had the chance? X considered the question. His people had lost their strategic advantage. The hegemony no longer controlled the most valuable trade routes because value itself had become distributed throughout the galaxy. Everything had changed. Every day, he admitted. And then I look at this. He gestured at the map. My species has discovered 14 new colony worlds in the last year, resources we never knew existed, trading partners we never could have reached. I will grow up in a galaxy infinitely larger than the one I knew. Was it worth it? Ask me in a century, X said, but I suspect the answer will be yes. A new lane appeared on the map, this one connecting two distant spiral arms that had never had contact. The notification indicated it was a joint effort between 4 different species working together. Smiled, the map isn't just changed anymore, it's alive, growing, evolving, every species adding to it, creating new possibilities we can't even imagine yet. Chaos, X said. Freedom, replied. They watched as another lane appeared, and another, each one a small act of creation, each one changing the shape of the galaxy. The old counselors had been right about one thing. Humanity had destroyed the order of the galaxy, but in its place, they had given something infinitely more valuable. They had given everyone a chance to redraw their own futures. The star map would never be finished again, and that, in the end, was exactly the point.